Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your boy GrandmastaJ, and today we have a very special topic for you today. I want to talk about Asuka or Kuroits, okay? Now, Asuka is known to be one of the hardest fighting game characters, if not the hardest, like single-handedly, fighting game characters in the entirety of all fighting games. Now, is this true? Is this false? I'm not really sure, but what I can tell you is that I've played him for about 2 weeks straight, right? And he is the most complicated character that I've played in a very, very long time. I think the most complicated, probably second to Nine the Phantom. Although Nine the Phantom, like once you realize that like 90% of what she does is just kunzite, it's really not that bad. Anyway, so in order to talk about the complexities of Asuka, first we got to talk about fighting games as a whole. What exactly is the goal of a fighting game? Now, this sounds like a goofy question, right? What's the goal of a fighting game? The goal of the fighting game is to bring your opponent's health bar down to 0. That's it. It's really that simple. And now the question is, how do different characters go about accomplishing this goal, right? Because obviously not all characters are the same. Otherwise, we would just have a bunch of solo bad guys. Well, Slayer, his goal is to get this close to you and punch you really hard, right? That's his goal, is to just punch you very, very hard. He has moves that just allow him to really help punch you very, very hard and mix you up and stuff like that, like a command grab. And he does a lot of damage up close, and therefore that is his goal. He just wants to accomplish his goal of dealing a bunch of damage up close. For Asuka, what's his goal? Well, he is able to hit you up close, right? Although his up close buttons aren't that good. They're decent. But he also has these projectiles. So you might think, oh, hey, well, I guess he is a zoner, right? But his zoning is a bit complicated, so he's kind of like a zoner hybrid mix-up style character. And that's kind of one of the points as to like why he's complicated, is that his goal is not that clear. Because while, yes, he can zone you out, right? He also has spells like this, which does not do a very effective job at zoning your opponent out. He has a lot of spells that require him to be close to you. And then he also has some spells that kind of really require him to be close to you, because at a distance, they are actually really bad. And so Asuka's goal ends up becoming, well, I want to zone you, but not all the time. But I also want to get up close to you, but not all the time. And you can see why it's not super clear, but we'll kind of get into his win conditions in a second. Now let's talk about resources, because resources is like pretty much what most zoners have, or like some characters have, but Asuka has an interesting set amount of resources. Number one, as you can see, he has these 4 cards here that he's able to play, right? And now what happens is that he's able to play a card, and he's able to draw a card. He's able to play a card, right? And in some cases, the card plays themselves or draws themselves. He's able to play a card and draw a card. That is one of his resources. Next, you have the mana. So you see the mana directly next to those cards. Well, that mana is what allows him to actually play these cards. As you can see, every card that he plays, shy of some of them, do cost some amounts of mana, right? Now, another thing you might know is that, or may not know, is that his mana also goes down when he draws a card, right? Whenever he draws a card, that his mana also goes down. Another way for his mana to go down is if he gets hit. If he gets hit, his mana is also going to go down. Now, what does this mana do, right? So if you look at his health bar, I'm going to do a combo, right? A combo with full mana. That did a pretty decent amount of damage, not much though. Now, what happens when I put his mana all the way down to 0? Or I guess in this case 1. All of a sudden, that did way more damage. And why is this? Well, if we take a look here, hold on a second, I just gotta click on this. If we take a look here at effective health, you can see that Asuka's effective health is 676. Now, this is with his mana shield. Now, what effective health is, like, just to kind of touch into it, it's basically like the accumulation of all your defense modifiers. It's essentially like some characters have low health, some characters have high health. The whole guts and defense modifiers thing, it just translates to this. So thank you for this, the people who run Dustloop. Asuka has the highest health in the game by far, right? Only when he has mana. If you scroll all the way down, he had the lowest health in the game by far when he does not have any mana. In fact, he has 100 less mana than Chip Zanuv. So why is this important? Well, it's because this resource is more important than just being able to play cards. It is also doubly acts as your lifeline. It acts as your second health bar, and if you don't have it, you will die. Now, how does he manage this? Well, he can do that in one of 3 ways, right? Well, I guess you can say one of 4 ways. We're going to get into that. Number 1 is he's able to charge his mana, right? He's able to charge his mana back, and this has 3 different, he has 3 different charges. One is the green charge. Now, the green charge, as you can see, is very slow. Basically, if I even just tap the green, I can't even get a spell. I have to tap it like, what, 1, 2, 3 times, and then I'm able to play one of the weakest spells in the game, and it takes me a very long time to charge. It's just hyper ineffective. We barely use it outside of something like, oh, I got him to block something. I'm able to kind of charge up a little bit, right? That's kind of it. Next, you have his yellow, right? His yellow charge. Now, his yellow charge takes up meter. Now, it does charge significantly more than his green. As you can see, I'm actually able to play something, right? And able to charge up way better. In fact, I'm able to charge up to full relatively quickly. Let's see. 1, 2, about 2.5 seconds, right? People use the yellow if you kind of have enough space to do so. What people mostly do, though, is the red charge. Now, the red charge, as you see, very quick. The red charge is very quick, but it does require his health. But it is just so effective if you do a tap charge that you're able to use any spell in the game. So you're able to do, say you don't have any meter, you're able to do tap charge, play into yellow charge, and all of a sudden, now you're back to where you want to be. And because of that, Asuka's actually, like, even though he has a lot of effective health, he uses a lot of that as a resource as well, so he doesn't really have that much health. Like, the reason why they gave him so much of a defense modifier is because you want to maintain your shield, but in order to maintain your shield, you're going to use your health. But by the time your opponent hits you, say you might have half your health because you're too busy throwing a lot of spells, you don't want to die in one hit. So they made it so that you don't die in one hit as long as you manage your shield. Now, in order to demonstrate the cards that require mana, I'm going to put his mana down to 30% just to kind of like illustrate this, right? So as you can see, he has 3, and now these 3 cards are tied to his test cases, which we will get to in a sec. But they essentially do the exact same thing, which is to recover mana. Now, they do that in different varying ways. The first one here, as you can see, I'm going to play it. It doesn't recover mana, but what it does is that it makes it so that mana costs less. Like, any action that you take ends up costing less. This one is okay, admittedly one of the least useful ones, but you're going to be using it more than the, I guess, the third one by something that I will explain to you in a sec. Now, the second one that he has in this list is actually the best one in my opinion, which is the auto regenerator. I don't know what the heck it's called, but it automatically regenerates your mana. Now, this is fantastic because now you don't have to take an action to recover your mana. Your mana is automatically going to recover. So if you're playing spells, you don't have to focus so much on your mana anymore. That's one less resource to worry about, hence why it is, in my opinion, the best. And the third one, now this is the one that I say you're not really going to use a lot, in a reason I'm going to get to in a second. This one allows you to just immediately use any cards that you have to recover as much mana as you're able to, right? Now, this conversion rate is actually way better than you think. I actually don't know how much it costs, but oh, hey, look, it does cost 5. Now, this conversion rate is actually way better than you think because 1, it costs the least, and 2, it immediately shoves a bunch into your thing. And even if you don't have one, you still recover so much. Like, that is near maximum. So like in one fell swoop, boom, you have near max of all your mana. And you might think, wow, Josh, that sounds fantastic. Why the heck do people not use that often? And this goes into your test cases. So in terms of the resources that he also has 3 different decks. Hold on, let me get out of here. Let me just do this. He has 3 different decks. Now, these decks do 3 different things. First of all, you start off with, I guess you can say, the Green Moon deck, right? But you're also able to, if you press down, down in heavy, you're able to switch to your, I guess, Galaxy one or your Star one. I don't know what the heck, I don't know how to really describe these, but I guess you have the greenish yellow, the blue, and then the green, right? Now, here's the thing. You always start with the greenish yellow one. That is your basic deck. And I'm just going to pull up this little thing that kind of illustrates what these decks do. So this is the one that you start with, which is Test Case 1. Now, Test Case 1 has a pretty average amount of everything. It has far more of these cube ones, which is great for when you're trying to, just throw things at your opponent and shoot them away. This is the one that you're going to start out with. It's pretty good. It also has this one, which which is a DP. That is his only DP in the game, his only actual reversal in the game. Although, you know, honestly, it's okay. Like, honestly, it's a little bit choreographed, the fact that you have one. Regardless, whatever, right? You're gonna start with this one. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't really accomplish anything because the zoning is good, but it's not fantastic, or it's not as fantastic as the others. And he only has these two, which are the mix-up ones, which is okay, right? Next, you have Test Case 2. And Test Case 2, this is the one that I was talking about, which has the fully shove mana into your thing. Test Case 2, and honestly, this is more so preference, but people have kind of figured out that Test Case 2 is not, like, it's better than Test Case 1, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as good as Test Case 3, which we're going to get to. Now, Test Case 2 has, I guess you could say it's the far more aggressive one. It has way more of these mix-up style ones. It has way more of the aggressive amounts of cubes, and it also has two of this one, which is one of the best cards in the game. The bookmark, I'll get into the bookmarks in a second. The bookmark is also hyper aggressive, right? Which allows you to just shove a bunch of cards into your hand, or like, yeah, just fully shove and get rid of all the cards in your hand at once. It has far less, I guess you can say, bricks, because both of the rods are good as well. I'll go into rods and everything maybe in a future video, but Test Case 2 is okay, right? Test Case 3, however, is the far and away best one in general, right? It has the best zoning. It has the best mix-up because it allows you to teleport and therefore do unreactable left-rights as opposed to a more choreographed high-low, right? It is really, really good. However, it is also the hardest one to use. It's just straight up the hardest one to use, right? And each one has 30 cards in the deck, right? But unlike a character like Faust, which, yeah, it's random, but at least you're able to react to it, or a character like Teddy, which actually the items are in a set order, these are random, and also it is very hard to, whoops, come on now. It is very hard to, I guess, play and react to them. Like, say for example, I have these two. Now you might think, oh, this is a really great spell. This is a fantastic spell. Yeah, but it also has a very slow startup, right? Like, extremely slow startup. So having two of those makes it very difficult because my opponent is just going to rush me down, and I don't really have much to really do about it. Now, this goes into my next topic, which is the randomness of spells. Now, not all spells are created equal, as we can see. And this goes into the whole, well, what is his goal? Well, the problem is that his goal varies based on what he has. Say, for example, I start the round like this. You might think, well, with a hand like this, I have to go in because I have one close range spell, one close range spell, and then one relatively farish range spell, but you really want to mix up with it. But now they're gone. Okay, cool. Hey, look at that. Now I'm a zoner. It's like, you get what I'm saying? Like, the randomness of spells drastically changes how you have to play the character on the fly. And sometimes trying to do that, plus manage your meter, plus manage not getting hit, plus all this other stuff, and we didn't even get into matchups yet. We're going to get into matchups later. Makes it fairly difficult, just to say the least. All right. So now, back to the age-old question. How does Asuka, specifically, get your opponent's health bar from maximum to 0? So here's the thing. Asuka zoning is not... It's fantastic, right? Best in class, I will say. It doesn't even do that much chip damage. Look at that. It doesn't really do that much chip damage. So, honestly, you're going to run out of health bar trying to manage your mana before your opponent is going to run out or get chipped out, right? So how the frick is he really supposed to win? Now this goes into Test Case 3, and so I'm going to permanently put myself into Test Case 3 just to kind of illustrate what the heck to really do with this character, right? First of all, Test Case 3 introduces the God spells, okay? Now, when I say the God spells, there are just spells that are straight up objectively better than everything else. Okay, here I have accumulated some of Asuka's best in class, if you see this card, you should really play it kind of cards, right? First of all, you have the auto import, right? Now, this is far and away, this solves many of Asuka's problems. Now what these things do is that they solve his problems, right? The auto bookmark allows it so that if you play a card, it'll automatically cycle to the next card. Now, this is fantastic, especially if paired with the auto mana recovery card, because what you're able to do is you're able to play both, and all of a sudden, now you're able to play a bunch of cards. I don't even have to like do anything. I'm just holding forward, and I'm just playing a bunch of cards, right? Now, they did nerf the duration of them, because honestly, it used to be very unfair at some point. But yeah, no, it's still a fantastic duo. Some people call it Exodia, honestly. And Exodia is also further helped with this rod. Now, what rods do is that they affect the trajectory of the projectiles, and what this one does specifically is that it makes it so that there is a gravity in place, so that the cards kind of like circulate around and therefore last far longer, right? Which makes it very good. Essentially, you're putting an entire stop sign, especially if you like put it directly behind your opponent. You're putting a whole entire stop sign to your opponent, and it puts them into block stun like pretty much indefinitely, and if they get hit, it's really, really good. And then, of course, you have this move, right? Now, this move is really, really good if you're able to get it out. What it does is that it creates a double onslaught of many cubes, and it is the most plus button in the entire, or the most plus one in the entire game. You're able to take the most actions out of it. You're able to do a lot of stuff. You're able to run up and do like a high-low kind of situation here. And if you do have, let's see if I'm able to get into it. If you are able to get something like his teleport here, and then you're able to do some cheeky stuff like this. Whoopsie. You're able to do some cheeky stuff like this. I messed it up, but you can see the idea. You teleport right there, you cross them up, bing, bada, boom. It's really, really nice. Now, two of his other god, I guess you can say god cards is this fire one, right? Now, what it does is that it is, yes, it is a cube, but it is one of the more higher durability cubes. And depending on what number you get, I mean, yeah, the number does gradually either go down or gradually goes up, depending on what number you get, even if it's above 3, right? It is just one of the best cards in the game. It is very, 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 very difficult for your opponent to do anything about it. Or specifically to smack it out, because it comes out at such a weird angle and such weird durability that what happens is that they might hit 2 of them and then get hit by the rest. It also does a lot of damage. So that one's great. Another one is this big giant cube. Now this cube, I do put a big asterisk on it, right? This big giant cube is good sometimes. Where it's not good is in a place where your opponent can smack it. Because as you can see, there's a very, very large hitbox, right? Right, very large hitbox, and this is because Asuka definitely like just kind of ran the game at some point, right? So you really want your opponent to block it, because it puts them in a massive amount of block stun. Actually, it puts them in so much block stun, you're able to get a true 50-50 off of it. So that's really good. And lastly, you have his teleport spell. Now, I do need to put a humongous giant asterisk on this spell, because this spell is only good not necessarily in a vacuum. It is only good when paired with other spells. For example, if you are able to get in on your opponent or retreat from your opponent and throw something out, it is very good like that. It also pairs very well with this spell, which is kind of like a static shocky spell, right? That one's really good to pair with it, because it creates like, a very, very fast 50-50. It's also very good with this spell, his regular blue cube, because this spell comes out the fastest. It is very difficult for your opponent to react to that. And so it actually creates like some fairly tricky very hard to blockable situations, right? But all these items are good only when paired with other items, right? Now, some of them help you with your resources. Some of them help you with helping, I guess, cycle through your cards, which is the same thing as resources, right? And some of them are very good for locking down your opponent, actually creating scenarios for mix-ups. But as you can see, you kind of need 2 of them. You kind of need 2 different cards at the same time in your hand in order to actually get something started. For example, if I have a teleport, I really want to see this blue cube, or I really want to see these green cubes. Other than that, I can't really get much started, right? Like in a vacuum, say I just had this card. This card on its own really sucks. I really don't want it, right? I really want to establish some pressure. Yeah, sure, I can maybe back up and do like a cheeky little grab, but like my opponent can just see the fact, oh, this idiot doesn't have any cards. I'm gonna rush him down. And that kind of goes into the biggest issue with Asuka, is that he needs multiple things to kind of fall into place in order to actually be effective. And now your goal as an Asuka player is to make sure that these things do fall into place with proper resource management, right? in order to actually set up situations where you're able to then go for things like actually good mix-ups, right? Now, there's two more things I want to talk about. Number one is the concept of autopilot. Now, what does autopilot mean? Autopilot means that I, as a player, already know everything that my character can do, right? I know everything that my character can do, and therefore I do not have to waste mental resources to play this character. I don't have to waste mental resources on what I can do because I am already in tune with my character. I'm already in tune with what I'm able to do. So therefore, I'm able to focus on more important things like my positioning, the matchup that I'm fighting against, the situation that's happening around me. I'm able to better clearly react to the environment that is going on around me because fighting games is a very chaotic situation, right? Or some characters can create some very chaotic situations. Asuka has an issue where it takes far longer to autopilot with him. If you pick up Asuka, you're not going to be good with this character for at least 3 weeks. Straight up. If you want me to put a number on it, maybe like 1,000 games, you can finally say, okay, I'm now starting to autopilot with this character. Before then, it takes up so much mental resource just to say, oh my gosh, I am playing all these cards, I'm playing everything, bada bing, bada boom. All of a sudden, it's like, oh no, I wanted to play this card, but I'm out of mana, and then my opponent is like, hey, idiot, and then they freaking hit you and you die, right? Like, this happens so much where I'm like, I feel like I'm winning a game, and then all of a sudden, I'm out of resource, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Or I use so much of my, hold on. I use so much of me, like, charging this, my health bar, that it's like, all of a sudden, I'm at 0 HP, or like 1 HP, and then I get hit by literally anything, or I block anything, and I get chipped out, and I'm like, what the frick is going on? Asuka is extremely hard to autopilot with. It's very difficult because you have to just worry about so much crap that's going on the screen, so much crap that's going on with yourself, not necessarily even what's going on the screen. And now that brings me to my last point is matchups, okay? So let's bring little Slayer boy here as an example, right? So I'm gonna have Slayer do this, all right? Now his first issue and his second issue go hand in hand because Slayer is kind of one of Asuka's more natural enemies, right? Now, this is really funny. Oh, well, see, that's why I said that cube is godlike. Slayer's one of Asuka's natural enemies because he's able to punch straight through the cubes. And so now I need to worry about the Slayer matchup, but I'm too busy focusing on everything that I can do to even worry about the Slayer matchup. And it just creates this situation where Asuka feels like he requires so much mental resource to actually play that you don't feel like you're really good at the game for a very long time. Now, those people who have overcome that initial barrier have proven to show great success. For example, Zondo is one of the greatest Guilty Gear players of all time. He plays Asuka, and he plays him to such an extreme. He's able to like recognize everything that's going on the screen. Mostly because he's able to actually like autopilot with Asuka. He doesn't have to worry about what Asuka can do. He's more worried about what the opponent can do. And then he doesn't have to worry about none of that. Same thing with Gobo. Gobo has played Asuka so much and he grinded so much. He was like, you know, like all these players are good, but I'm gonna just sit here and play solitaire by myself. And he did because he knows and understands Asuka to such a degree that he's able to get these game-winning situations far more often than you or I. So anyways, that's it for me today. So when I play Asuka on stream, don't be like, wow, Josh, your Asuka really sucks. It's because, look, he's a really freaking hard character, okay? So anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.